I feel like you can see the pores on my face. So any of you who have been on my channel for some time know how interested I am in this kind of true crime stuff and how much I enjoy creating and editing these videos. And I decided that it would be the best course of action to actually invest in what I want to continue to do. So I did invest in some good equipment. In addition to this, some people near and dear to my heart also contributed to the cause and gave your girl some things that I need and that would be really useful. So all of that combined is enabling me to bring you some hopefully higher quality content, and I of course am planning to continue uploading, and probably more frequently than I have been up until this point. If I'm honest, I've been a little insecure about the lack of sufficient equipment, and even though I did make the commitment to still put out content for my channel, I wasn't 100% satisfied with what I was releasing. So this is a step in the right direction, a few steps, because I've added some things to my arsenal and other people have also added to my arsenal, which I am extremely thankful for. So without further ado, hello my amazing people, and welcome back to my channel. If you're back, if you are new, welcome to my channel. I am Shayna and I have another true crime case for you today. Just my usual disclaimer, this is all information that I have found online that I've compiled into a video for educational and entertainment purposes. I do also think that for this video I should give a trigger warning. If you're back, you know that I always post content involving some morbidity. However, this also involves an incestual relationship. So if that is something that you cannot stomach, which I completely understand why, because I was on a roller coaster doing the research for this video, please feel free to click out and join me in the next one. I promise I will have another awesome video for you next week. So let's get started. Back in 1995, there is a 20-year-old man named Stephen Pladl who comes across a 15-year-old girl named Alyssa Garcia online. The two of them live on opposite sides of the country. Stephen lives in New York City and Alyssa lives in Texas. But the two of them really hit it off. They're exchanging messages back and forth constantly. They're writing love letters and sending them in the mail to each other. And Stephen, he's really eager to get this relationship started, even though they had this distance between them. So he decides to take a trip, get a flight out to Texas, and he goes to see Alyssa. Now, this is a romance, but I in no way condone this. Of course, it was absolutely illegal for the two of them to be dating, and this is in some way foreshadowing the very end of this story. So just keep that in mind, that the two of them, while they had a seemingly innocent start to their relationship, Stephen was well aware that he was in a relationship that was illegal, as he was with a minor. Alyssa was 15. But he goes out to Texas. Her parents let him come visit her, which is a whole other thing, but let's keep going. Lets him come visit her, and they supposedly fall in love. Alyssa said, "This is my forever man, and you know what? I want to go live with my man." So she goes back to New York City with Stephen, and the two of them fall pregnant pretty soon. When she's 16 years old, she finds out that she's pregnant with a baby girl. She gives birth at 17 years old, and she, even though has very limited resources, she's far from her family, she's young, she is just trying to figure out her way in life, she's still very excited and hopeful for the future of her baby Denise. And she really wants to give the best opportunity for success. She really wants to provide a healthy, stable household for Denise, and she really starts off on the right foot as a mother. But with this in mind, Stephen had other plans. So Alyssa is trying her absolute best, like I said, to be a great mom, and Stephen is just doing everything this man can to get in the way of this. So after Alyssa gave birth to Denise, Stephen began becoming physically and verbally abusive to Alyssa. And not only did he abuse the mother of his child, he also abused his child. So this man would pinch baby Denise's skin, leaving little purple and black marks on her skin. He would leave her in enclosed spaces to get her to stop crying, almost to the point of suffocation, and take her out just before she passed out. He would cover her mouth and nose with his hand to get the child to stop crying. And he just, all in all, was a horrible person to live with at this point. Alyssa reports that he had a horrible temper, anger management on another level, would be punching holes in the wall, destroying their home, and she decided that for the best interest of their child, the decision that was extremely painful for her to make but absolutely necessary was to give Denise up for adoption. So that is what she did. Denise goes and lives with a new family. The names of the people who adopt her are Anthony and Kelly Fusco. They have a biological daughter of their own already, but they welcome Denise into their family with open arms, and they decide to rename her Katie. So this was a new start for her. They wanted to really give her a new beginning. So they renamed her Katie, and things went really smoothly throughout her childhood. In the neighborhood that she lived in, it was a super tight-knit community. Everyone looked out for each other. She had a really normal, like nothing to be concerned about upbringing. And in high school, Katie became well known. You know, there were things that people liked about her. She talked a lot. You know, they nicknamed her Pac-Man because she was always yapping. Sounds like someone I know. In addition to this, she was a cheerleader. She was an animal lover, and an animal lover to the point that she was a vegetarian, which is extremely noble of her. But not only that, she was well known because she was really good at art. She was a creative and artistic girl, and she was especially known for her ability to make really good comic strips. So everyone who knew her knew that she was a really lively and outspoken person, but also was extremely talented. And her art really played a major role in her happiness and her satisfaction in her teenage years. And she is known to write, quote, "A life without art is no life at all." So you can really see how this really was just her driving force and the thing that motivated her. And she really wanted to go on to study digital advertising in college, and she had huge plans for her future. There was nothing that was going to stop her at this time. And after she graduates from high school, she actually decides that she wants to connect with her biological family. Now, she knew growing up that she was adopted, but she never really had a reason to want to connect with her biological family. Living with Anthony and Kelly was perfect for her. She had no qualms about her upbringing. But as an 18-year-old, as an adult, she became curious. You know, she wanted to really find out the people that she came from, learn more about them, figure out who they were, what they were like, what their life was like. So she found Alyssa and Stephen Pladl on Facebook. The two of them were still together. They actually had 2 more daughters by the time that Katie finds them. And she is excited to connect with them. They're excited to connect with her. And she wants to go visit them and decides to do so. Now, at this time, they're living in Virginia. And she makes the trip all the way down to Virginia. But she's not just going for a short visit. She actually wants to live with them. And she tells Anthony and Kelly that she has found her biological family, and she really wants to explore what a life with them would have been like and really just get to know the people that they were. Anthony and Kelly are not super excited about this idea. They think she's making a bit of a rash decision, but due to her age, they of course can't stop her. So they give her their blessing and she is on her way. When she makes it down there, they welcome her with open arms. The younger daughters are super excited to have a big sister, of course. And Stephen and Alyssa are just getting reacquainted with their firstborn. Now, the 2 younger girls were 11 and 6 years old, and the relationship between Stephen and Alyssa wasn't the best. So by the time Katie makes it down there, they are sleeping in separate bedrooms, and their relationship is just really on the rocks. And not too long after Katie arrives, they decide to separate completely, but they're still living in the same home. And you know, it's 100% appropriate for the conversation of why she was placed up for adoption to be had. It's expected. And Alyssa tells Katie, Steven was very abusive to you back then, and I felt that the best thing to do for you as a mother was to give you up for adoption. He was erratic, he didn't treat you right, he was physically abusive, so I had to do what I had to do. And Alyssa was a little taken aback when she saw that Katie didn't really care. She didn't really have much of a reaction to it. She was like, okay. But she still maintained a bond with Steven that she had started to foster when she arrived in Virginia. And they got super close. I mean, like, super duper close. I mean, like, too close for comfort. So Alyssa notices that Steven begins kind of dressing differently. He's dressing a little more trendy, a little more like his younger self. He grows his hair down to his shoulders. He shaves his beard. He's acting a little younger. And he's spending a lot of time with Katie, which that's her biological father. Catching up is 100% expected. But they're getting a little bit too close for comfort, like I said. So Alyssa notices that one night, Steven goes in to sleep on the floor of Katie's bedroom. And the first time she sees it, she thinks it's out of the ordinary, but she doesn't say anything just yet. The next day, she sees that Steven goes to sleep on the floor of Katie's bedroom, and she goes in and she says, this is absolutely inappropriate. This is not going to continue. What are you doing? This is your daughter. Don't you think it's a little weird to be sleeping in her bedroom? She's an adult. So Alyssa thinks that she shuts it down, and things, you know, life goes on. Alyssa is actually just sick of her relationship with Steven at this point. And even though Katie was there and they were trying their best to welcome her into a normal life, Alyssa decides that the best thing to do was to file for a divorce and to move out. So she's sharing custody with Steven of the 11 and the 6-year-old, but Katie decides that she just wants to stay in the home. And Alyssa didn't think too much of this. She just thinks, okay, this is the home that she came down to visit. I can understand why she wouldn't want to move again. Okay, fair. But Katie decides to stay with Steven. Since Steven is sharing custody with Alyssa of the two younger girls, they're of course coming back and forth. They are coming to see Steven to visit, and they start noticing some odd things. They notice that Katie and Steven are sleeping in the same bedroom. They're young, but they're old enough to know that this isn't necessarily normal, right? Not only this, Steven begins telling the girls not to call Katie their sister. He instructs them and gets angry if they refuse to call her their stepmother. Now, this is happening to two young girls who have no business to be exposed to something like this. This is like a level of emotional processing that you shouldn't have to deal with as an elementary school or middle school age child. And we know that the girls struggled with this because how does Alyssa find out about Katie and Steven's relationship? She's going through a journal of one of her daughters that she finds and reading the entries, and she sees that one of the girls drew a stick figure of Katie with a big old pregnant belly, and is also just processing through her thoughts in her journal of how her dad is telling her to call her sister her mother, and why would she be calling her mother if she's actually her sister? You know, the thought process of a child. Alyssa sees this and she goes berserk. She is infuriated. She is hysterical. She doesn't know what to do. And not only did this child write that in the journal, she also writes, this is crazy, y'all. She also writes that her father is Satan. So if he's Satan and Katie's human, is the baby a demon? Half demon? Like, for a child to really be writing this is deep, because that shows you how twisted and sick the relationship was perceived by them at such a young age. And it also just illustrates how horrible of a father Steven probably was to these two young girls, the same way he was to Katie when she was an infant. But moving on, Alyssa now knows that not only are Katie and Steven in a sexual relationship, but that Katie is pregnant. Her daughter is pregnant by her father. That's something. What does Alyssa do? She calls Steven up. She's like, what is this? This can't be true. Tell me this isn't true. And Steven confirms it. He goes, I thought you knew. We're in love. That's exactly what he says to Alyssa. I thought you knew. We're in love. So Alyssa feels helpless at this point because she doesn't know what to do. Katie's already pregnant, but she knows that she has to protect her 2 daughters from this man at this point because he's clearly sick and twisted. So she files a protective order of protection for her youngest daughter so that he has no access to them. And she also calls the police to report that an incestual relationship was taking place and that Stephen was having sex with his biological daughter and got her pregnant. So the police begin investigating. They actually interview Katie, Stephen, and the 2 daughters. But at this point, no actual arrests were made. The couple decide to move to Knightdale, North Carolina, where Stephen's mother actually lives, and they move in with her and continue as normal somehow, strangely. And in July of 2017, Katie and Stephen get married. They go to Maryland and they get married, and they're able to do this by lying on the paperwork that asks them of their relation to each other. They lie and say that they are not biologically related, and they get married and they have a ceremony, and it is the most creepy thing. You know how you can see an actual creepy picture where without context you're afraid of it? This, knowing the context of the photo, just gives me like the chills because it's Stephen and Katie. His mother is on the left and Katie's adoptive parents are on the right. Like, can you imagine you're the adoptive parents of this girl and you have to come to a wedding ceremony between your daughter and her biological father with her being pregnant with his child? Like, it's almost like my brain just can't process how messed up it is. But Katie's, adoptive parents basically said that they felt like there was nothing that they could do. She was an adult. She was going to do what she wanted, and they wanted to be a part of the grandchild's life. So what other option did they have is essentially how they felt. A few months after their wedding, they have a baby boy named Bennett, who is just as cute as a freaking button. And in January of 2018, they are actually arrested on charges of incest. There's 2 other charges along with it, but the incest charge is the main one. That's the one that stuck out to me. And I actually didn't know that you could get arrested for incest, but I'm glad that you can, especially when you are creating an offspring that could potentially experience life-changing, life-altering complications in their health due to y'all DNA being so close together. But moving on, they are arrested in January of 2018. They are released on bond shortly thereafter with a no contact order in place. So this means they can have no communication, not in person, not over the phone, not in writing, not in letters, absolutely no contact. So when they get arrested, Bennett actually goes to live with Stephen's mother, and she gets custody of him. And when they get out of prison, Bennett stays with Stephen's mother, and Stephen does also live in North Carolina, and Katie goes back to live with her adoptive parents in like the New York area. A couple of months go by, they're arrested in January, and then April comes along. At this point, they're already out and they have this no contact order in place. Katie has an epiphany, and I don't know if her adoptive parents got to her or the law got to her or she just realized this is something that she didn't want anymore. But reality smacks her in the face and she's like, I actually don't want to be in this relationship anymore. So she calls up Stephen. She breaks the no contact order. She calls up Stephen and she tells him that she no longer wants to be involved in this relationship with him. And, they have a son together, but she has absolutely no interest in continuing to be romantically involved with Stephen. And Stephen goes bonkers. He loses his mind and he actually decides that he's going to take a trip and he's going to go see Katie. Maybe try to convince her to stay, maybe plead his case. But regardless, no matter what he actually does, he's going to continue to violate this no contact order because he has to do something. So he actually goes to pick up Bennett from his mother's home, takes him back to another house. It's unclear if it's the house that he's staying in or an abandoned house or what, but he takes Bennett back. He suffocates the child. He suffocates his son that was born by his daughter. and leaves him in one of the closets in the home. He then gets in a light blue minivan and drives all the way up from North Carolina to New York, where Katie is located. Now, he knows her schedule. He knows what days that she is where, and he actually sits outside of her adoptive parents' home because he knows that's where she's going to be. He waits in the back of his minivan hiding, and after some time goes by, Katie comes out of the house with her adoptive father, Anthony, and they get in his truck and they drive off. And what does Stephen do? He, of course, follows them like the crazy fool he is. He follows them, and when they stop at a red light, Stephen pulls up beside them and fires fatal gunshot wounds into their car, killing both of them. He kills his daughter after killing the son that he had with his daughter, and he also kills the adoptive father of his daughter that gave her an amazing life and was the reason that she was able to grow up, because had she stayed with him, she probably wouldn't have made it that far. So he kills all three, and then he calls his mom and he tells his mom what he's done, and he tells her that he's killed Bennett, and he tells her what else he's done, and he pulls over to the side of the road like the coward that he is, and he shoots himself and he kills himself. And I wish that there were some sort of happy, like uplifting, maybe positive things that I could talk about at the end of this, but there are not. There are none. They don't apply. That's it. Like, that's really where the story ends, tragically. Like, just horrifying. And I remember the first time I heard this story, it has to be months ago now, like at least 6 months ago. I remember listening to a podcast about this. I was like, what? I didn't even know things like this happened here, let alone anywhere. Like, I was just so taken aback. And then I'm sitting here today, I'm like, I don't know what video to make. I'm thinking maybe Chris Watts, maybe the Iceman. I'm going down a list of different stories that I could tell you guys. And then I remember this story and I'm like, yo, that was out of pocket, and I need to make sure that other people know about it too, because this is just absolutely scary. And what's scary is that it happened, right? But the warning signs were there. Stephen was dating an underage girl when he was an adult. Now, that's not to say that everyone who dates an underage person are going to do anything to this magnitude. It's not to say that at all, but that was some foreshadowing. And then just the people, the onlookers, you know, who let this stuff happen. It's just like crazy to me that it had to end in so much tragedy. But yeah, hopefully you can sleep tonight. But I think that's it. You know what I'm gonna say. Thank you so much for watching. If you made it this far, you are loyal. You really are, and I appreciate you. I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Have a wonderful day or evening, depending on what time it is when you see this. And have an absolutely incredible week. I will see you in the next video. Peace.